Hey, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to A Balanced Life here with Dr. Jacquie on Black Star Network. And let me tell you, we have already hit the ground running, talking about how do we manage our mindset related to our feelings and emotions, removing people from our spaces that are toxic. But today we're going to talk about our money mindset and our relationship with dollars and cents. I know, you don't even have to say it. It is difficult sometimes to talk about how we deal with money in our relationship with money because we have all of these self-limiting beliefs, these things that we've been taught over the years about what to do with it, what not to do with it, who to loan it to, where to get it from. But today we are joined by some amazing people who are going to help us figure out how to set priorities, how to set goals and benchmarks, and how to stay disciplined throughout the year as it relates to money. Today, we are joined by Stacey Owens, Pastor JT Johnson, Dr. Tierney, and we have two special guests. We have Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and Pamela Sams is joining us again today from Pam Sams Wealth Strategies. I'm going to invite everybody in because we need to talk about dollars and cents. Hey, y'all.
Hey, Dr. J.
Let me tell you, money in the new year, money at the beginning of the month, money at any time we don't have enough of it, has this way of causing us to literally lose our mind. I want to start off by just asking each of you, tell me about your relationship with money. From when you first learned about your relationship with money, how you're managing your relationship with money, because oftentimes we do set the tone for people to say, okay, this is my benchmark. Okay, this is my avenue. This is my access point. Deborah, I'm going to start with you. Talk to us about your relationship with money.
So I love talking about this topic. I've been really transparent about how I found myself in the investment industry. As a young woman, my parents separated after 30 years of marriage. And so I saw my mother's standard of living decline to just about above poverty. And what that really taught me at the age of 17 was that it was important for me to have a purse of my own. And as I went on in my career, that's where the title of my first book came from. And so the origin of my whole mission of helping women specifically, and Black women even more specifically, take ownership of their financial success really comes from me seeing the financial insecurity experienced by Black women. And more specifically, as I went on my career, what I found was that my mother's situation was the rule and not the exception. 9 out of 10 women are going to be responsible for their own finances. They will either never marry, or separate, which my parents did. They never divorced, or their husbands will predecease them. And so as I found myself journeying into a career, that really was the impetus, the catalyst for me wanting to learn more about money. And then what I found when I was actually climbing the ranks of corporate America in the investment industry was that what we are taught about how to really achieve financial independence and achieve a status of wealth, which is when your money's working for you and you no longer have to, is not taught in our traditional or formal education. We learn that type of skill, it's inherited. And so one of the other goals that I had was for my own children to be exposed to this knowledge so that they could navigate themselves in a financial services industry who specifically really is not designed to serve us.
That's very interesting. And I thank you for giving those statistics because oftentimes we don't know where we fall in that spectrum, but it does give us a vantage point, if you will, to really stay focused on how we look at money and how we use it. Pastor JT, talk to us a little bit about your relationship with money.
So my relationship with money, it's better now. I'll be honest with you. As a young man, I was kind of advancing my career at an early age, and I was making more money than my parents combined at 22 years old. And I really didn't know the value of a dollar. And I always say, man, if I could go back and get anything back, I know everybody want to reclaim their time. I want to go back and reclaim those paychecks. And because now with the knowledge that I have, I would make more wise financial decisions. So now I believe in the second stage of my life, the second set of 20, I am in a much better place financially, very wise and prudent with what comes in our home. I actually love the way the dynamic of our home is broken down. I'm the CEO. My job is to go out there and make it happen. And my wife, Natasha, she is our CFO. She has me on a budget, has our boys on a budget, has the family working and operating. And one of the things that I am grateful to know is that we don't live in a space where our heads are touching the ceiling. I know a lot of people think about the 70-30 rule, but we actually live in the 60-40. And there was a report that I saw with Lorenz Tate, the actor. He said that he never really worried about Hollywood drying up because he learned how to live beneath his means. So I'm now at a place right now where my relationship with money is great because of the lessons that young Jamel learned that old Jamel is benefiting from.
That's absolutely. So Stacey, tell us about your relationship with money.
So my relationship with money, if I was to be transparent, is getting better. So just like Pastor JT was saying, as you grow older into your older self, you start having a better understanding of money. For me, what has always been in the forefront of my mind is that I grew up poor. And I've always just set my tone and my pace with money as I don't want to, in my adult life, face poverty. I don't want to go back to that life of not having resources and not having access to any of my wants or my needs. So as it comes to my personal self, I'm still battling sometimes with my management of my money, because I can oftentimes revert back to that young Stacey where I'm just thinking about, things I didn't want, the things that I wanted that I wasn't able to get. So I'm always like maybe chasing after that now. But I think that once I became the CEO of a company and I had to now budget millions of dollars, at first that was a little struggle for me because I had taught kids about the number 1 million, but I have never had access to just spending or having access to $1 million or more. And so as CEO, I had to learn that from the accountability measures that's placed above us, because somebody above you in your company is always overseeing how you're spending the money. And I learned lessons from that. And then I try to take those lessons over to my personal life to say, okay, now I need to think about generational wealth. How do I position myself so that I have money or access or assets available for my children and my grandchildren? That part I'm still learning. I'm still getting better at, because just like Ms. Owen said, that is something that you're not taught. And no one ever sat down and taught me about generational wealth or savings or the importance of, for me, it was always have that drive, work to have the money so that you can get whatever you need and want. So it's evolving and it's getting better.
Absolutely. Pam Sams, tell us about your relationship with money.
Yes. My relationship with money right now is fairly good. It has not always been, but I grew up with my parents, part of what they call the Hope generation. So my parents were part of the early Depression when they were younger. So we always knew the value of a dollar. I would say they were a little bit frugal. Some people say they were more misers, but more frugal. And I remember growing up using, and I'm probably going to date myself, green stamps. So really, you would get the green stamps when you would buy something in the store, and you had a passport book, and then you would put that in there. And that's how we got a lot of the things growing up. So I kind of knew that earlier on. And then, of course, when I get to college, what's on campus? A bunch of credit card offers. So just to be transparent, I did get into a little bit of credit card trouble earlier on in my early 20s, and then start to learn a little bit more about money management when I got my first job, when I got married. And then, of course, I did explain to the viewers last time that the transition with my mother becoming a widow, and that transition when my dad passed away in 2001 allowed me to use some of the tools that I learned as getting my MBA in money management or financial management, and I was able to help her with that transition. And then started my career in financial services. And from there, of course, knowing all of the ins and outs of how money works and money mindset and how to teach others as well. And then, of course, teaching my kids about generational wealth and what they need to do starting early in their 20s has really helped out a lot. So I'm in a good space as it relates to my money.
That's good to hear. And Dr. Tierney, talk to us a little bit about your relationship with money.
So if I were to sum my relationship up with money into one word, that word would be respect. Growing up as an only child to my, single mother who had me very young, and we were living with my grandparents, we didn't have a lot. I had everything that I needed, but we didn't have a lot. As my colleagues have said, kind of growing up, just kind of making ends meet. I learned that money is something that is to be respected. It is a tool. I learned that we can't just be willy-nilly with our money. I learned that the very first lesson that my mother actually gave me with money was about tithing. When I got my first job, it was about being a good steward of what was given to me. Growing up the way that I did, being completely transparent, will tell you that I had a fear of being destitute, a fear of poverty. And so what I had to learn very early on as well was how to disconnect the emotions from my money. And having to tackle that fear, I was able to see and learn that there are a lot of emotions that could be connected with money. And so I had to tackle that very, very early on. And what that did ultimately was make me a very responsible person that respected money. In some cases, I'm very frugal. In some cases, I would say, hey, I want it, I'm gonna buy it. I work hard, but always making sure that everything that the priorities were always met. Right now, I'm in a space where I am looking towards what Deborah actually stated, looking at building wealth. I'm looking at trying to find ways for my money to make money for me, looking at different stocks, the dividends and things like that. How can I have that passive income coming in so that I don't have to keep working for my money, but I put it to work for me? So that's what I would say in terms of my relationship with money. It's one of just total respect.
Absolutely. When we come back after the break, I want to talk for a moment about living paycheck to paycheck. Honestly, we all have to start somewhere, and that's a great place. We'll be back after the break.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, we all have varying relationships with our money. We love our money. We have our needs, our wants, and our desires. But one of the things that's important for us to understand is how money can be used as a tool, a vehicle, and a resource. I want to invite in Stacy, Deborah, and also I want to invite in Stacy, Deborah, and Pam for just a moment to talk about this way in which we deal with money when we're living paycheck to paycheck, but there's seemingly oftentimes not enough money to deal with the things that we have to expense. Ladies, welcome in.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Deborah as well, because when we talk about money and living paycheck to paycheck, and the reason I wanted Stacy on this conversation, because as a business owner, all of you are business owners. And I think we get into that space of not wanting to pay ourselves. And so living paycheck to paycheck looks a little bit different when we have a business to run. But Deborah, talk to us about that for a moment, because we have young people in college getting their first paycheck, graduating, getting jobs, high school students getting their first paycheck. What should their relationship be with that paycheck to paycheck aspect of their lives?
Well, it is interesting in that I look at them as habits, and so much of it is mindset. And this is what I want young people to understand, is that there's a difference between earning income and building wealth. And so the way I like to describe it in this way is that, people with a poverty mindset, they do have that paycheck to paycheck mentality. And so what is important is that you are able to transcend and move into the mindset of wealth. But there's certain, steps that you have to go through. So typically that poverty mindset is that paycheck to paycheck. Whereas the kind of poor mindset is that month to month, week to week living, right? Like whatever money we have coming in, that's what we're going to spend. Oftentimes people are managing their funds based on what's in there, whether or not they can take it out of the ATM. And then how most of us really were trained around money was to have what I call that income mindset or middle class mindset, right? Where we are able to pay our bills month to month. And if you think about it, that's exactly how we're sold products in terms of what we can afford in a car or what we can afford in a home. And then when we go up a little bit further, we're getting to that, maybe we've met what has been deemed financial success or that six-figure income. Then we start having more of an affluent mindset where we're putting in our 401k, where our bills and our basic needs can be met, and we're operating in a budget. But beyond that, and that is the goal, and that is what I learned going inside of private wealth and high net worth families, is there's that wealth mindset. And that wealth mindset doesn't manage their money week to week, month to month, or year to year. They're really making decisions based on the long-term impact and acquiring assets like investments, like stocks, like building a portfolio with dividend stocks from generation to generation that they can then pass on. So to your original question around young people, it really is breaking through that poverty and poor mindset and begin to understand, as you so aptly put, Jackie, that money is a resource, and the ultimate goal is to be in a position where you have turned your income into wealth, and you no longer have to work for it because your money is working for you.
I think that that's a place where we would all like to get to be, is our money, working for us. Pam, when you think about not just young people, but everybody in between, that living paycheck to paycheck comes with some certain amount of stresses and distress. How do you help people financially ease those types of discomforts when you have so little of that money so that you can build it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Definitely money is very stressful for a lot of people, especially if they're living paycheck to paycheck. But like what Deborah had mentioned before, it's more of a poverty mindset instead of an abundance mindset. So I try to do mindset check first in terms of what do you need to achieve this month, but think about your long term as well, because that's how you create and you build wealth. Now, of course, you're in the day to day, and that's what you're stuck in, and that's the mentality that you have. But you do also have to have an abundant mindset as well. And I'm really a big proponent on budget. Because a lot of times, what we say, we spend what we want to spend, not exactly what we want or what we need. So you have to go through a needs and a wants analysis, or things that you could be overspending on, or just straight out just spending money on things that you don't need in your budget in order to free up some cash flow. And you don't have to be living paycheck to paycheck. Or you can decide also how to develop a passive income. You have your regular income base that you're working on a 9 to 5, but there's so much gig work, there's consulting, there's a lot of different things that people can do to bring in a little bit extra income to grow wealth as well. So you don't have to be stuck in terms of the living the paycheck to paycheck mentality. People have what I call a financial thermostat. They only think they can earn a certain amount, or they only think they can accumulate a certain amount. And you do have to break that cycle when I speak with my clients to make sure they overcome that and become more in an abundance mindset. So they're really not focused on, I have more month than money. Really, how do I achieve the goals that I need to with the money that I have? And am I overspending on certain categories that I don't need to do in order to make sure everything is going to work out in the long run?
Absolutely. Discovering how to balance those things oftentimes can be tricky. And Stacey, I definitely wanted you in this conversation right now because you're balancing two things. You have your business and you have your personal. How do you, in many ways, when you're looking at cash flow and income from parents paying and this, that, and the other, make those decisions so that you're not living from, month to month. And I won't say for you paycheck to paycheck, but oftentimes it's, can parents pay for their child's tuition or can they not pay? And making those things necessary in order for your schools to run. Because we forget sometimes that when we're running a business, there's a lot of emotion attached to the services that we provide, in addition to making sure that all of the money is going in the proper directions.
I think I want to take that from a slightly different perspective. I'm not going to go from the parent perspective. Let me go from the teacher perspective first, because you were just talking about how young people. Every day I see school teachers, even in my building and other facilities as well, who have what I coined TED time of the month. TED time is the teacher emotional dive, which means around the first of the month when you get paid, because majority of our teachers get paid once a month. So at the beginning of the month when you get paid, you see their emotions are high. They're happy. They're eating out more. You see the DoorDash deliveries coming. They're interacting with the students in a great way. And then around about the 10th of the month, 15th of the month, now you've paid your bills. Your money's a little low and you still got about 2 more weeks to go before you get paid again. And the last 2 weeks of the month, depending upon those teachers who haven't planned well, you start seeing, they're a little bit, their patience are running thin with the kids. Their emotions have taken a deep dive because now we're starting to stress about, do I have enough gas to get to work? Do I have, enough money to, provide my lunch? Now you're seeing the lounge and the refrigerator is filled with lunch boxes because now you're bringing lunch. And the money is attached to those emotional beings because they're happier when we have the money, sadder and a little frustrated when the money is low. And we had to come in and say, let's take a look at that. Like, I'm not even in a position to be managing someone's money for them, but I had to have lots of conversations with my staff to say, let's just look through your budget. Let's look through what are you doing with your funds, because 30 days is a long time to go when you have to pay all of your bills, and then still have to live off of whatever is left. So are you living within your means? Is there places that you can, make any adjustments to what you're spending for the month? And especially after the holidays, because now they have to wait 6 weeks to get paid. And I give a pretense at the beginning in December when I pay my folks, I'd be like, okay, guys, y'all know you got 6 weeks to go before you get paid again, right? So what are we going to do? Let's plan for that ahead of time so that we don't find ourselves, struggling and in that bad space. And we also taught our teachers how to use their gifts and talents. Like, can you tutor in additional to that? And that's a very even thin conversation to have because they work so hard. And a lot across the world, people are saying, well, teachers shouldn't have to go do other jobs and do other things to supplement their income. But, you should be trying to have, 2 flows of income. It's not just regardless. I have about 3 streams of income that I work from, only because I don't ever want to go back to that place of I can't do what I want when I want. I think from a parent perspective, my parents don't have to pay to attend school, but you do feel their pains when they're not managing their money correctly. And I deal with an impoverished population. So a lot of my parents would come with that poverty mindset when it's surrounding money. That's why I wanted to go from that teacher aspect, because you do have to learn how to go from the poor mindset to the middle class mindset to the wealth mindset. It definitely is a mindset.
I think that what you've stated gives us an opportunity to really figure out and discover what matters most and how we build our day to day and what we do with our money, what we don't do with our money, and how to keep it all intact, because it is, as Pam stated, very stressful. When we come back after the break, I want to have that conversation with Pastor JT and Dr. Tierney, because there is a scripture that says, do not be a lender or a borrower. And oftentimes we get into that space of dealing with credit and borrowing from family. And oh my God, that in itself is a whole nother world of hurt. When we're back after the break.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, discovering how to use money to your advantage. And we work hard for it, so we want to spend it the way we want to. But life has a way of teaching us that there are things that we have to pay for. So desires and needs and wants often fall into various pockets in our lives. Pastor JT and Dr. Tierney, let's talk about that for a moment, because there are times that we get into credit card debt, that we borrow money from family. People borrow money from loan sharks. People get into gambling. And rather than having an alternative, legitimate revenue stream, there is this other revenue stream that kind of creeps in. And it also, takes away from income in the household, because we have to pay interest fees and, all of these different things. So I'm going to start with Pastor JT, our resident theologian. He's going to keep that title probably for all his life. But while we're on this show, I would love to hear your perspective about borrowing money from other people and the kind of trouble that causes.
Yeah. I don't necessarily even know if this may need to be deep and wonderful and extra spiritual. But man, borrowing money from people really can cause stress on relationships. And I always say to people, don't lend money that you can't give away. Mm-hmm. Because that moment, and it's complicated, like the relationship status selection on Facebook. It's complicated. You know how you have somebody that they have a totally different energy when they come to you and ask for the money. But boy, when you go back to ask them for your money back, whoa, it's a totally different response. And have really seen people lose relationships because of that, And one of the things that I would say is really kind of taking something that my dear sister, Dr. Tierney, said, man, that really stuck out with me. And I passed it on throughout the end of the year. And I brought it with me into 2023 is don't make somebody else's emergency your necessity. And a lot of times I believe that we are so empathetic and we sympathize with so many people that a lot of times we find ourselves being lenders to people that really have bad financial habits. Mm-hmm. And so I believe from a wisdom standpoint, we have to stop being other people's enablers, and then really cause them to come back and look at their financial landscape and really see how can you avoid being in this space again next month on the 15th. And then next month on the 15th, and really start making some wise decisions. So now as it relates to borrowing, I would take somebody or you to a place that you need to borrow. Ask yourself, would you lend the money to you if it was you? And if you can't even trust yourself to give yourself the money, you may not want to be upset when somebody may have to tell you no.
I think, would you loan yourself money? Man, that's a hard question to ask. Dr. Tierney.
So as JT was just talking, I thought about that scripture. If you teach a man to fish, then he'll never go hungry, as opposed to giving him a fish. My mom, I guess, took that scripture really to heart, and I appreciate her for doing that, because she was really quick to tell me, this is my money, this ain't your money. You better go figure it out and figure out what you got to do. The other thing she would tell me all the time is, I got your back, but you got to have your front. So there was never a time in me, in my teens, 20s, struggling college student, that my mom swooped in to give me what it is that I needed. Because at that point, if I had to go and ask her for something, she knew that by that point I had exhausted all of my resources. And the point that I'm making with this is that as Pastor JT said, the enablers, we have to understand that we can be enabling people to be entitled. I once had a client one time that said to me, well, they just being stingy. I know they got it. It's not your job to count anybody else's paycheck. It's not your job to be entitled to what anybody else has. You know, it's not your job to, just because they've worked for it or they have it, or that's your sister or that's your cousin or that's your mom or whoever it is in relation to you, that does not entitle you to whatever it is that they have. I love what Pastor JT said about not borrowing or lending anybody anything. I follow that same philosophy. If I give you something, I'm giving it to you. I'm not expecting it back. I don't give anything that I'm actually going to need. So I may say to you, no, I don't have it. That doesn't mean that I'm not able to pay my bills. That means I don't have it to give to you. And that's where that line of respect has to come in, because you have to respect my boundary, my financial boundaries of what it is that I am doing and setting up with my money and my goals and the wealth building process that I'm on. If you are in a poverty mindset and all you want is somebody to continue to enable you, that's not her. She is not about to do that. And so you have to make sure that you are taking very good account of your habits, your behaviors, what it is that you're doing in your life with your money before you start to feel entitled to somebody else's and what they're doing, or start to pass judgment or start counting their pocketbooks. You know, you never know what a person has or doesn't have. So that's where that respect piece comes in. And we have to stay in our own financial lane.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because the family bank, because when one person in the family makes it, they make it for everybody. So let's talk about that for a moment. How does being the family bank impact the individual who is constantly giving to other people? Because at some point, your income will not always be at the level that it is. So now you're no longer preparing and saving. Pastor JT.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is really pull from Dr. Tierney's mom. So for lack of a better term, I'll call her Mama T. She really, I think, defined the parameters in which we should operate. Now, if there is an issue, or if there's a problem that you are looking to assist a family member with, and this literally may be a hand up and not a hand out, that's a totally different situation for me being the personal financer for you to go and have a night out on the town on my dime. I believe that that does not constitute me having to now fund your fun while I'm having to sit at home and I have to go and be the breadwinner for the family. So I really believe, and that is an issue that's pervasive in our community. That's why so many professional athletes end up going broke, because the first check that they get, they feel that they have to put everybody on. And it just feels like an old BET Hip Hop Awards where one person wins the award and 50 people come to the stage. And that's the mentality that a lot of people have adapted. But I believe that if we go in believing that if I am going to be a help to my brother or a help to my sister, literally and maybe figuratively, and help them out of a situation versus being a person that's always having, as Ms. Owens said, your purse open and everybody always has access to your purse, because there's going to come a time when that purse is going to end up being empty. And you have, and I keep leaving with these questions, but you have to ask yourself the question, Can the person that I have literally given all of the contents of my purse to come back and be the person that can replenish what they took out? And so if that's not the case, now we both going to be sitting broke. Somebody got to have some money, and it's going to be me.
Dr. Tierney.
Absolutely. And this it goes back to the conversation of boundaries. We cannot expect, if we have a family member that is well off and does well for themselves, we can't expect that they're just going to give us a handout. That's actually, as I see it, an opportunity, as Pastor JT said, for a hand up. If you want to start a business, hey, give me, $10,000. I want to start this business. Okay, let me see your business plan. Let me see your structure. Let me see, the partners. Let me see the vendors that you're going to be working with. Approach me just as you would a bank. Just because I'm your cousin, sister, friend, approach me just like you would to the bank. You wouldn't go up there to Bank of America and just say, hey, give me $10,000 and expect them to give it to you. And so that's where the person that has the money has to set the boundaries and not be afraid that, oh my God, they're not going to like me. Oh my God, they're going to be upset with me. I won't be invited to the family picnic. If that is the grounds for which you get kicked out of the family, then we have a bigger conversation than just a financial conversation, And so that's where that person has to stand on their own too and say, you know what, I'm actually going to help you. Even if you feel like I'm hurting you or being selfish, I'm actually helping you. And I'm doing this in love, because high tide raises all boats. If I win, I want everyone around me to win, but let me show you how I won. Let me show you the sacrifices that I made. Let me show you the times that I didn't go out and I invested in this stock. Or let me show you the times that I put this money to the side that y'all didn't know about as to why I was bringing my lunch. Let me show you that, because I sincerely want you to win. And for me to help you to win, it means that I might have to tell you no and not give you this money.
Absolutely. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about a mindset check. We'll be back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, sometimes we overextend ourselves and overspend, and then we become overwhelmed. I want to invite everyone in because we need to have this conversation about how do we help people do a mindset check when it relates to money. My money, your money, and everybody else's money. We have to figure out how we can make this pot of whatever is available to us work for everybody, because one person shouldn't be the breadwinner. One person should not be the family bank. Hey, everybody, let's talk about that for a moment in this next block, because, having this mindset check before a person asks you for money, how do you feel about them trying to figure out where they would get it themselves? I'm start with Deborah, because, this is that space where we're saying, what does my purse look like right now? And what's in it? Do I want to give it away? Is it worth it?
Well, yeah, I love this topic. Every quarter or so in Wealthy You, what we do is our challenges. And so we have a 5-day challenge, and it really is about cleaning out your purse and cleaning out your wallet. And the challenge is designed for you to get into the right mindset. But the truth is, you cannot change what you will not acknowledge. And so the first thing we do is we talk about the difference between a poverty mindset and a wealth mindset, and help people really do an assessment around what is your mindset. But the second day is the most important of all. And that's when we do a financial makeover, where we actually have you go look at 3 bank statements and look at where your money is going and whether or not that money is serving you. Quite often, we have everything we need to be everything we need to be. It's simply that we're not managing our resources. So it's not about resources in many, many cases. It's resourcefulness. And that's why I so appreciate what Ariel is doing. I'm sorry, not Ariel, but the teacher who is Stacy, who is managing this school. I love going into companies and really helping them feed their employees with the knowledge that they need so that they can better manage their resources. So that's what it's about. It really is about, if you can't manage what you already have, if you get more money, Biggie said it right, more money, more problems.
More money, more problems. Pam Sams.
Yeah, and just like what Deborah had mentioned, it's you have to transition to an abundance mindset. As I mentioned and a little bit earlier, is that we tend to have what I call a financial thermostat. If you're going to earn the same amount of money, that's why a lot of lottery winners, once they win money, they reset back to where they were before because they never had it before. So you have to make the adjustment, and you do have to do the assessment, as Deborah had mentioned. I do at the end of each year for my clients, I tell them to fill out a financial report card. How did you do for the year? Give yourself a grade, A through F. Hopefully it's not on the F end. Hopefully it's closer to A. But if it's closer to the end of the spectrum, the D's and the F's, what do you need to be doing differently this year? Take an assessment of where you are and where you want to be, and then write out a game plan on how you're going to get there. That's the key, is really acknowledge where you are. If you want to do, you can't do the same thing that you have been doing to get to a different spot. You got to do something different. And so you need to put down what you want to achieve, how you're going to do it, put your goals in place, and then you get to it from there. But you do have to change your mindset to, if you're going to do something different, if you want something different, you got to do something different.
Absolutely. Stacey Owens.
I would say, again, I'm not the financial guru, so I like to work on the whole personal self. So let's figure out, do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? So whatever job you're in, whatever career you're facing, are you content with where you are right now? And if you're not content with your spending or content with the abundance that you are attracting to you, then let's think about what's your 5-year plan? What's your 3-year plan? What's your plan for tomorrow? And usually when I find that we're dealing with people who haven't even thought about what they want to do next, or how they can improve, or how they can change, or how they can attract anything else, that's when I start helping them to see that, okay, well, right now you're in a fixed mindset. And as long as you're there, you're going to stay there. So now what are some things you can do to help change your mindset to growth? How can you improve? What else can you bring to add value to your personal self that will transcend over to your financial self?
Absolutely. Pastor JT.
You know what? I will be honest with you and tell you that what Pam and Ms. Owens and even what Stacey said has been spot on. So since I am the resident theologian, I'll go scripture right here. Paul said this. He said, there's one thing that I do. I'm forgetting what is behind me, and I press forward towards the goal. I think from a practical standpoint, the first thing that you have to do is you have to start, just as Ms. Owen said, you got to identify those financial habits that you have really practiced that haven't gotten you where you want to be. And then forget those. Stop doing it. Establish the goal of what the new you looks like. See that as a reality, and now let that be the one thing that you do. Paul said, this one thing that I do, that's the one thing that I do. And now I'm going towards that goal. And when I identify the where, that goal for somebody may not to be a millionaire right now. If you're living from paycheck to paycheck, saying that you're going to have $1 million by the end of 2023 probably is not realistic. Identify a realistic goal. You may just want to have $5,000 in savings by the end of 2023, but at least you have identified that. And then now you start to make those incremental steps to get there. You start changing what you're doing. You start changing what you're listening to. Maybe start listening to some podcasts that's talking about money and wealth and money management. Start living on a budget. Stop living from paycheck to paycheck, or stop living with the lottery mentality that every time you get a paycheck, ching, ching, we going balling. Put them crab legs up and go and make some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches until you get to a space to where you're able to see your money.
Absolutely. I think that was so well stated and with such passion and fervor. Dr. Tierney.
Y'all better put those crab legs up.
And get that peanut butter and jelly.
It tickle me. So I wanna back it up a bit because we're talking about things like setting goals. We're talking about things like making a budget. We're talking about things like setting a financial plan. But if you are just kind of coming off the couch, if you will, in the financial aspect, all of those things might seem very daunting to you. Oftentimes we repeat the patterns and behaviors of our parents. So likely you're repeating the financial habits and patterns that you saw, your parents do. And more often than not, the people that are around you have similar same financial patterns and habits. So the thing that I would say is get around some people that are doing what it is that you ultimately want to do. You're seeing them maneuver in their lives, in their finances, in every aspect of their life, in the way that ultimately you want to. Start asking them those questions. Hey, how did you do this? Hey, how do you stock market? Okay, what are dividends? What are NFTs? And explain it to me like I'm in kindergarten, and really start asking the questions, because we don't know what we don't know. And this is where I have to put in a plug for us coaches. Get you a coach. Get a financial coach. Sit down with someone and say, hey, I want to be transparent and vulnerable. Tell me what it is that I don't know. Oftentimes we walk around like, I ain't telling nobody my business. I ain't telling nobody how much money I make. And you're going to be stuck right in the same place that you are right now. We all need help. So invite people into those spaces. Let someone help you make a budget. Let someone help you to clarify your goals. And that is the first step that you can take in this new year to start actually moving the needle forward in your finances and in every area of your life.
Absolutely. I think each of you have given our audiences things that they can begin to start with to give them an opportunity to figure out how they do a mindset check related to their money. I'll give my reflections when we're back after the break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, learning how to manage your money begins with you. So I'm going to give you my 5 things, and the acronym is MONEY, as it relates to how I manage the things that are important to me. M is make time to address your own emotional feelings about your money. You have to make time for those things that matter. O, take ownership of how you spend your money. That's spending versus saving. N, never loan out what you may need later. E, take time to experience life. You work hard. Use your money for things that matter to you most. And Y, you make decisions related to your money. People can help you. They can guide you. They can give you direction and instruction. But at the end of the day, the decision belongs to you. I hope that something that we have said today will allow you to have an opportunity to really figure out, to get a baseline, to begin to balance how money will work for you in the new year. Bye now. And once again, Happy New Year.